The following program is a UWTV classic.
From the University of Washington in Seattle, Upon Reflection.
Hello and welcome to Upon Reflection. I'm Marcia Alvar. Art Wolfe is one of the world's best nature and wildlife photographers, a split-second orchestrator of light, form, composition, and the unpredictable behavior of his subjects. Although he travels the globe, taking photographs in exotic locations, he says he's still basically doing what he was in grade school, playing in the woods. Born and raised in Seattle, Wolfe studied painting at the University of Washington. His two newest books include Penguins, Puffins, and Auks, and Endangered Peoples. Welcome to Upon Reflection.
Thank you very much.
Those two new books, one is a study of polar birds, and the other is a look at the vanishing faces of the human family. At the outset, it might look like they're very different. Did you feel that way as a photographer? Did you feel like you approached them differently?
Actually, I had done a lot of work on animals, in specifically on endangered species, and I think that is much more of a correlationship to the endangered people, because we're losing so many cultures, so many languages every year, as we are a lot of the species that are tied to very specific environments. And so I approached photographing wildlife with the same intent as I have these various cultures during the past year. When
I've looked at your pictures and I've looked through all the books of the bears and the owls, all different kinds of things, it looks like what you're searching for when you're looking through the lens is a particular kind of connection.
I often think that when I'm photographing people, if I can get some sort of intimate look into the lens of the camera, that I can connect, I can convey what I'm feeling at the time to the viewer ultimately of the photographs. And I like that connection with the eyes, not only of the animals, but of the people.
And you can feel when that's happening?
Definitely, definitely. And I can also feel when it's not happening, and then I try to start from a different approach, or get the people involved in what I'm doing. I often bring hand puppets if I'm photographing children, and if I can get them laughing, it relaxes everybody, because often I don't have the opportunity or the luxury of spending days on end in a village and getting the people to know me. So I have to break down that kind of wall of unfamiliarity with myself, and that seems to work, getting the people laughing or interested in what I'm doing.
Of course, hand puppets don't mean a lot to lions. How do you work with animals? What's the equivalent of a hand puppet when you're working with them?
An odd array of noises or movements. I try to catch their eye or their interest with a strange sound that I can emulate, or a high-pitched whistle. And often they'll be intent on hunting, and all of a sudden they'll stop and look right into the camera, and I click the camera at that moment.
We're going to take a look at some of the pictures from your two newest books, and let's start out with Penguins, Puffins, and Auks.
This is an interesting sequence. This is of the emperor penguin, which is really unique among penguins in the sense that they nest early in the Antarctic spring and atop the frozen ice. And we landed there last November and promptly set up camp, as you see. Here you're looking at two adults. They're large birds. They're 90 pounds, and here they display over their baby. Some believe that they're actually bonding to the baby by making these displays.
They can be 4 feet tall.
4 feet tall, 90 pounds.
Oh.
The baby, once it's hatched, never touches the ground for at least a month, and it's precariously balanced atop the adult's feet. And once it's about a month and a half old, then it's able to walk upon the ice.
Now, is there a pouch there? They're just balanced right on top of
The
the feet, sort of
actually,
cradled by the feet.
The feet actually curl up and hold the baby in place.
They're darlings.
They're great. And here is a sequence of shots of people that I've done in the past year and a half. These are Uyghur children, Muslim children in Western China, and I often will use reflected light, as you're seeing here. They're following me around their village, and obviously a great subject matter wherever you turn.
wonderful pictures of children in that book.
This is a sad story. These are the Penan tribesmen that inhabit the old-growth forests on the island of Borneo, and the Malaysian government is rapidly cutting the forest out from under these people. And I alluded earlier to the endangeredness of their environment. These people are really going to face a tough future if somebody doesn't stop the deforestation right now. Very, very primitive cultures. These people, again, are in Irian Jaya. They're the Dani people of the highlands of New Guinea, which is the largest island in the world, and very friendly people. But again, the Indonesian government in Jakarta is threatening their existence by allowing a lot of the Javanese to immigrate and change their culture. And here is another shot of the same people. They wear very ornate headdresses and pig tusks in their nose, and it's great to travel with people that pretty much exist as they have for the past 10,000 years with really little change in their culture.
You traveled all over the world for endangered peoples. How many continents did you go to? How many places?
All the continents, and probably about 30 countries.
Having taken that sort of whirlwind tour of so many parts of the world, what did you see threads that connected these disparate people? I mean, did it give you a different kind of perspective, having seen all of them so quickly and so intimately?
You know, it is amazing, and it wasn't just for this project, but as I've traveled over the years, it's incredible how closely knit the cultures are. For instance, the people of the highlands of Peru, the Incas, and as well as in Ecuador, the style of clothing, the very look of the people are almost identical to Tibetans. The clothing they wear, the hats they wear, and it's just amazing that they're so seemingly unconnected. But I can't help but think that the people that crossed through Alaska and as they eventually populated South America, there had to have been some traditions that were passed on. Otherwise, they evolved to the habitat. And the people of Tibet, for instance, and the people of the Andes are basically living in the same environment, same harsh environment.
You talked a bit ago about using a puppet with the children to get them to relax. When you're working with adults, and these are people whose lives are so different than ours, tell me about how you work, how you arrive, how you establish a relationship, how the pictures get taken.
It really varies depending on the country. When I went into the mountains of Irian Jaya, I was told that if you purchase a couple hogs and give them to the village with the intent of having them have a celebration, that they immediately welcome you into their village and allow you to interact with them, and that's what I did. I purchased 2 of the largest hogs I could in Wamena, which is the major town in the highlands of Irian Jaya, and contacted the chiefs of each tribe and said, here's some pigs, let's have a celebration. And they really readily took to that, and they opened up their story. I identified myself, incidentally, as a journalist that wanted to tell their story, and they're very aware of the value of having people get their story out.
So they know how endangered they are.
Yes, they have 10,000 Danis were killed in the 60s by the Jakarta government. A little known fact that really got out to the rest of the world. And it's no less true with the Penan in Borneo. The Malaysian government has been ruthless in suppressing any kind of revolts against their government. And that's true in a lot of other cases, as we've witnessed in Central America, and that's why the young lady won the Nobel Peace Prize. In 1993, we are under the impression that everybody's civilized, and yet you just scratch the surface of any of these governments, and you find that there's a lot of human rights violations that are occurring, and it's basically genocide of these real primitive cultures.
Working on this book has really grabbed you.
It has, and you can't help but care for the people. If you traveled as much as I have and gone into so many of these cultures, the people are so friendly. They're not political animals. They strive to succeed in raising their crops or rearing their animals, and they're not at all threatened by people like myself coming in, and they open up their houses and allow you to have food with them and stay with them, and they're so friendly towards outsiders that you want to return the favor and and try to do what you can to help them. The book, Endangered People, is an attempt to embarrass these governments. We are distributing them to every delegate in the United Nations, and it really comes down hard on some of these governments.
Now, 1993 is the year of the indigenous people, although in the book it's mentioned that not a great deal of headway has been made. And as I was looking through all of your books about the people, and in this book, your books about animals, there's some kind of irony in that it seems that there's more and more attention being paid, more shows about this, and yet the destruction of habitats and species seems to be gaining momentum.
We're winning some battles. I mean, I was born and raised in Seattle, and now I see more bald eagles flying around the waterfront of Seattle than I ever have seen. The salmon are returning to the Willamette River, and yet then the Snake River is on tough times. I think that nature is very resilient, and given a fighting chance, it will come back, but we have to identify that. I noticed that the cities across America have cleaner air than they have in the past 15 years. I'm hopeful. I think we have to grasp at the positive and really take that and use that as momentum to attack the other problems and ailments around the world. But you know, there are positive signs. If people just look at the negative, I think we all would give up, and that's not an alternative for me. And it's certainly true with wildlife preservation and habitat. I think there's still enough habitat around the Northwest and indeed the rest of the world that if we strive to preserve what's remaining, there is indeed enough habitat to keep a lot of these threatened species alive. Look what's happened with the whale populations around the world. They've literally come back from the brink, and there's as many gray whales as there ever has been, and they were nearly obliterated 20 years ago. So you look at the positive and you try to build on that.
We have some more pictures that you've taken, some wildlife pictures, and as we look at these, what I'd like you to tell me, if you can remember when you took the picture, is how did you get the picture that we're looking at?
Okay, I'd love to. Oh, this is a leopard in South Africa, and it's on the edge of Kruger National Park, which is a national park the size of Massachusetts. And I'm working from a Land Rover, and this is a young male leopard that was reared by a mother that was very habituated towards people. So the leopard actually hunted as if we did not exist, and we were able to get a lot of sequences of it exhibiting its natural behavior, which is a very uncommon sight in Africa. They're such secretive animals. Here we're looking at 3 rollicking polar bears in Churchill, Manitoba. This time of the year, in October, they congregate along Cape Churchill and wait for the ice to freeze over Hudson Bay. And they've got a lot of energy. They like to play, and you're just seeing a wrestling match here.
There's a lot of bears in that part of the world.
Oh, it's incredible. Here we're looking at a humpback whale in southeast Alaska. No one is absolutely sure why they leap out of the water. Some think it's nothing but a play activity. And it's incredible to see a 40-foot, 40-ton animal launch itself out of the water.
There's not much you can do to make that happen.
No.
It's just going to leap or it's not going to leap.
This was recently shot on my TV show, The Safari, up on the Alaska Peninsula, and we've just landed on a seaplane, gotten off the pontoon, and a bear walked straight up to us. And I had the presence of mind to turn around and take the shot before it was too close to focus.
And before you ran away.
Yeah, right.
How dangerous is the work that you do?
I don't fear the animals, nor do I the local populations. Certainly with working on endangered people, there was concern about the governments, Malaysian and Indonesian in particular. They have had a history of really coming down hard on journalists and kicking them out of country. And in fact, there's been a Swiss photographer that was recently murdered in Borneo, and many people point to the government simply because this man has really championed the Penan tribesmen. So that's a concern. But more importantly to me, the thing that I worry most about is flying into remote regions on less than up-to-date aircraft, and you just cross your fingers. I had a recent near miss with a plane landing in the jungles of Irian Jaya this spring with lightning and thunder and clouds, and landing on these remote strips that do not have the latest technology in terms of helping us down. That truly scared me, and That's what I worry about.
When you started out as a photographer in 1977, I read that you saw that there was a hole in this school of photography.
Growing up in Seattle, I was always admiring the Springs work. Bob and Ira Spring and Joseph Scalia, and you know, Seattle was educated with nature photography in the Seattle Times, and so I was interested in that. But beyond those two people, I really did not see a lot of nature photography. And as I graduated from the university, I was always interested in hiking and documenting my climbs. And oddly enough, I was approached by a climbing store to put some of my work up in their store, and I thought, well, maybe this is something that I could potentially supplement my film cost. And it quickly grew from there, and I recognized that there were far fewer people photographing wildlife successfully, and I thought, well, I have such a strong interest in nature anyways, why don't I pursue that?
The key word in that answer is successfully. And when you say there was a hole, there was a kind of picture that wasn't being taken. And that's the kind of picture that you thought you could take.
And I haven't stopped from there.
And what kind of picture is that? How do you describe it?
Something that is artistic, that's something that doesn't look like it belongs on a hook and bullet magazine, you know, filled and stream, that looks like it should have a bullseye, you know, printed over it. I like to capture portraits of animals that reveal a little bit about the animal. And then the other approach is to photograph it where the environment is as important as the animal. And with what I hope to be a successful composition with textures and lighting and all those elements come together, I think a lot of people, when they, you know, the state of the art of wildlife photography has really come a long ways in the last 10, 15 years. And before, it used to be nothing more than, as long as you could focus on the animal, shoot it, no matter what light or composition was thrown out the window. And I think we've brought it a lot further, and it's become a fine art form as far as I'm concerned.
There's also seemed to have been a change in the idea that pictures of animals and wildlife were taken as observers. And again, getting back to that connection that you seem to like to have, there's a new intimacy between the photographer and the subject.
And it's amazing when I give slide presentations around the country, how many people are affected by that. There's a lot of people that, I don't know whether they've always had this interest, but certainly with the nature programming that we're seeing on KCTS and the Discovery Channel, more and more and more people are tuned into animals and nature, and it's been great for me. It's been great for my career. It was lucky that I chose something that was long, you know, was before it became popular.
Caught the wave before anybody else saw it.
And I don't really see that changing.
You were working as a photographer, though, for about 10 years, and you only had 2 books published in that time. And then all of a sudden, there's just all kinds of Art Wolfe
This
books.
was a real concentrated effort on my part. I was, during that 10 years, I was pretty much pursuing Smithsonian Magazine and National Wildlife, National Audubon. These magazines were a great thing to work, or great people to work for, but ultimately, after the month issue that magazine came out, people forgot about it. So I wanted to find a better way of preserving my work, and what better way than a high-quality book. So I've really maintained what I think is high standards in the books. There's a lot of books being produced every year that are designed to sell quickly and get off the shelves, and what I wanted to do was maintain quality and design and presentation.
So what that meant was that for the first 10 years or so, you were taking a lot of pictures, but you didn't feel you had enough yet.
I didn't catch on. I mean, you know, my life and my work is always evolving, and I really didn't think about books until about six or 7 years ago, and then certainly in the last 4 years, I've really caught on, and whenever I go on any particular trip, I may be shooting for 3 or 4 book projects at once, and that's why 4 books of mine came out this year. There's 2 more next year and 3 more the following year. That's pretty prolific, but that's reflecting all the work that I put into the last 10 years.
And as if that weren't enough, you now have a television show too.
Yes.
Tell me about Safari.
Safari is kind of an interesting show. It's a little bit of adventure, a little bit of a glimpse into celebrities' lives. I take movie stars and sports athletes out all around the world, teach them photography. They initially have to have an interest in either nature or photography, and many of these people really are serious. And we've got a lot of people interested to come back to the show next year, including Candice Bergen and Sigourney Weaver started taking pictures of apes when she was on the Gorillas in the Mist
Doing
movie.
the Diane Fossey story.
Yes, and so we take them out, we educate them, we have fun, and more importantly, it's the camera angle looking over our shoulders as we're sneaking up on a bear or whales. Or I took Robert Duvall last week to South Africa and we got chased by elephants, but then that's another story.
That's another story. It sounds like a great one. We're going to take a look at an excerpt from Safari, which actually runs on ESPN on Saturday mornings as part of an American Photographers series. This is an excerpt of a piece featuring actor Peter Strauss. So we'll go on.
Yeah. Yeah, if you have a choice, have a little space in front of the whale rather than behind it.
Gee, Art, you suddenly don't instruct me when the good shot comes up. All of a sudden the shot's there, and I'm just, you know, Joe Instamatic over here. I don't get f-stops, nothing. He just leaves me alone here. I could be here with a Polaroid. There he goes. Art's next book.
This is great.
I mean, it's really bizarre. We're spending a day shooting the dorsal fin of an object that's entirely underwater.
That is nice. Look how they stay on the surface. Gives you plenty of time to focus. That is great. God, what a beautiful sight.
Oh.
Ooh. God, this is great. Oh.
Jeez Louise, is this beautiful.
You know, one of the things you should do, what I'm doing is I'm shooting 250th at f11, and that gives me a greater depth of field. And why that's important is when you've got so many fins coming up that are maybe 6 or 7 feet apart or more, you can get them all in focus at once. And it's certainly calm enough that we can get away with shooting at 2/50th of a second or even 1/25th of a second right now that the boat is stopped.
So what would happen if I increased the shutter speed? I would lose the depth?
Depth of field, exactly. And that way you probably would have 1 or 2 fins in focus and maybe not 5 or 6. You know, you're
And the island's going to go soft back there anyway.
Yeah. Now this is going to be nice. Look at it. They're going to come right in between us and that little island, and I'm going to frame it accordingly. And if they come right up, which the way I think they will, here they come, right up in front of the island. Right. Nailed it. That's nice. Look at that.
Taking photographs of killer whales, and that was near Vancouver Island, right?
Yes, right up out of Port McNeill.
Art Wolfe with Peter Strauss as part of the Safari series that runs on ESPN. What a way to make a living.
It's a bitch. I love it. I mean, I've been doing this full-time for 15 years, and I just came back from Vancouver last weekend with 40 shots, or 40 rolls of mallard ducks. I mean, the common, everyday mallard duck, and I was as excited to look through those rolls of film as I was 15 years ago.
I have this vision. You come back with 40 rolls of mallard ducks and you spread all these shots all over, and probably the difference among some of these pictures is so minute. And how do you make the decision? How do you decide what's the best mallard duck shot that you took?
I could take 100 shots of the same animal, and always one shot, whether it's just a minute little glint in the eye, it distinguishes itself from all the rest. And finding that is great. It's like an Easter egg hunt.
I was thinking, watching with the video clip, that you did, sort of coming full circle. I mean, after you left the University of Washington and you were teaching, and that didn't really work for you. You went off into photography, and now sort of circling back into teaching a little bit again as part of this show.
You know, about 10 years ago, I started teaching night classes and running them all on my own. In other words, I'd find a room in Seattle that I could get, and I'd promote the class through a little notice up at REI, and I got a lot of adults And that was the difference between teaching in a grade school or a junior high where you were basically substituting for a orchestra class or a PE class, which I felt like I was just, occupying space. When I started teaching adults that were spending their own money and were really eager to learn, I loved teaching.
How can you teach somebody the eye?
Yes. Yes, it's not just a born talent. In other words, I think, it's diminishing all the hard work that people put into their art, whether it's a sculpture or a musician or a singer, whatever it is. There's a lot of hard work, but you learn from it. I think you can give people the skeleton of a compositional sense and let them play with it. It's frustrating when people say, oh, I can't draw, or I can't do this. It's like they're lazy. They're telling themselves that they can't, but I think people can definitely learn and improve. I'm not saying we're all going to be the same, but I think people should at least explore the possibilities, because it's, we're in a world these days of being entertained by other people, and I think more and more people should really tackle something, whether it's writing or photography.
I wanted to ask you if a time would ever come when you could just take pictures for yourself, or if having other people see them, if having an audience for your work has gotten so important that you could never do without it again.
I'm not sure I make the distinction, to tell you the truth. I'm out, where I'm going and the books I'm doing are ones that I created. They're ones that I have interests in. If I want to go see, for instance, the Middle East, I would create a book that would force me to get over there. So I'm not being, and this is yet another reason why I really left the magazine trail. I wanted to do book projects that were very personal statements of the subject matter. So I'm really going out and shooting for myself. And fortunately, what I like to do is also popular amongst a certain segment of society, so they support my habit.
What a wonderful congruence of things. Art Wolfe, it's been a great pleasure having you as a guest on Upon Reflection. Whenever you do your next book, I hope you come back.
Invite me,
Share
I'll
some
be
more
here.
pictures.
All right, thank you.
Sure. Great pleasure.
To see more UWTV classics, visit uwtv.org/classics.